Wind whipped across the valley at 28 miles per hour, changing direction constantly. The heat difference between where she lay and her target created waves in the air that made seeing clearly almost impossible. Her target sat nearly 2 miles away, 3,000 meters, moving unpredictably through land that gave only brief moments to fire. Every skilled sniper watching shook their head. "No way," they whispered. "Nobody makes this shot." Staff Sergeant Emory Collins looked at her computer screen, checked her math again, then peered through her scope at the faraway target everyone said was unreachable. She felt their stares burning into her back, the male snipers who'd spent months saying she had no business being here, who'd questioned every achievement she'd earned, who'd made perfectly clear they believed women couldn't handle long-distance shooting. They were about to discover how wrong they were. The target was a valuable enemy leader, whose vehicles were crossing a valley 3,000 meters from where she waited. If he got away, he'd vanish into the mountains for months, continuing to plan attacks that killed American soldiers and their partners. This was her moment, her only chance, and it belonged to her. "Collins, back off," Major Dawson's voice crackled through her radio. "We'll find another opportunity." At that distance, in these conditions, there's no realistic chance of hitting him. She stayed silent. Instead, she made tiny changes to her scope, adjusted for the Earth's rotation at this extreme distance, figured out how long the bullet would fly through constantly shifting winds, and steadied her breathing. One bullet, one opportunity. 3,000 meters of impossibility between her and a target command insisted couldn't be hit. What unfolded in the next 8 seconds would quiet every critic, change the history books, and demonstrate that talent and resolve mattered far more than anyone's assumptions about gender and ability. But before we reveal how she changed everything, drop a comment saying where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button, because this story shows that the greatest shot isn't always the one people predict. Now let's begin. Staff Sergeant Emory Collins walked into the Special Operations Sniper training as the sole woman in a group of 24 students. She'd anticipated some pushback. The military was improving with integration, but elite groups still carried old-fashioned views about women in fighting positions. What caught her off guard was how hostile some were from the very first day. "You certain you're in the correct place?" Sergeant First Class Derek Hammond asked with a mocking smile during check-in. "The desk job office is 2 buildings down." The other students laughed. Emory smiled politely and continued her paperwork, already understanding this journey would be challenging. The Special Operations Sniper training was built to be incredibly tough. It wasn't simply about hitting targets accurately. Any decent shooter could hit things at distance on a practice range. This program taught students to work in dangerous territory under battle stress in weather that made precision shooting nearly impossible. Less than 30% passed. Students quit or got cut every week. Emory had zero intention of becoming one of them. She'd grown up in rural Montana, learning to shoot from her father, who'd competed in long-distance shooting matches. By 12, she could consistently hit targets at 1,000. By 16, she was competing in precision rifle contests and beating adults double her age. When she'd enlisted in the Army, she'd specifically chosen assignments that would lead to sniper training. Now she stood at the peak of military precision shooting instruction, determined to show she belonged. The first section of training covered basic shooting skills, building fundamentals, calibrating rifles, firing at different distances under controlled settings. Emory dominated, regularly posting the top scores in the class. That should have earned respect. Instead, it earned her suspicion and anger. "She's getting assistance from the teachers," Hammond told other students during breaks, "probably getting the wind readings handed to her, or some. No way she's that good naturally. Or maybe I'm simply better than you," Emory answered, not glancing up from cleaning her weapon. The argument heated up fast. Hammond stepped close, using his size to intimidate, telling her she didn't belong, that she was stealing a spot from a qualified male shooter, that when real combat arrived, she'd panic and get someone killed. Emory held her ground. "Put your skills where your words are. Hammond, you and me. Stress shooting challenge. Loser buys drinks for everyone for a month." The other students immediately got excited, building up the challenge. Hammond had no choice but to accept without appearing afraid of competing against a woman. The stress shooting challenge was designed to copy battle conditions. Students ran 2 miles with full equipment, performed rescue carries, then immediately moved to firing positions and shot at targets from 400 to 800 meters, while teachers simulated enemy fire with loud blanks and explosion sounds. Racing heart, adrenaline and exhaustion all hurt accuracy. It was one of the toughest tests in the program. Emory and Hammond ran the challenge on the same day, back to back. Hammond went first, achieving a solid score of 7 hits out of 10 possible targets. When he finished, he felt confident, 7 out of 10 under stress with good performance. Then Emory ran it. She hit all 10 targets, including an 800-meter shot while lying in a muddy ditch with teachers firing blanks 3 feet from her face. When she stood up, covered in mud but smiling, Hammond's face went pale. That's 10 drinks you owe everyone, she said. I like local craft beer, by the way. The incident built her reputation. She could The question was whether she could handle everything else a sniper required: navigate dangerous territory, work independently for days without help, make life or death choices under pressure, function as part of a group where everyone's survival depended on each other. As training moved through phases: stalking, watching, distance estimation, moving target shooting, Emory continued to excel, but the resistance from some students, especially Hammond and his friends, never completely disappeared. They found other things to attack. She was too small to carry heavy gear long distances. She could and did. She was too emotional to handle battle stress. She was calmer under pressure than most of her peers. She would hesitate to take a human life when it counted. She wouldn't, and eventually proved it. The breakthrough came during the field training mission, a week-long exercise where students worked in realistic battle conditions, tracking targets, gathering intelligence, taking practice shots at long distance, while teachers played enemy troops trying to find them. Emory partnered with specialist Lucas Rivera, one of the few students who treated her with professional respect from the beginning. They were assigned to watch an enemy building, identify important targets, and eliminate them if the chance came up, all while avoiding detection by a dedicated hunter team searching for them. For 3 days they moved through hostile ground, living in hiding spots barely big enough for 2 people, watching the building through scopes, recording patterns, identifying targets. It was exhausting, uncomfortable work that demanded patience and discipline. On the 4th day, they got their chance: a high-value target identified by special clothing, and the respect other role players showed him walked out from the building and moved to an exposed spot 1,000 meters from their hiding place. That's our guy, Rivera whispered, checking the distance with his laser tool. 1,200 meters, wind about 12 miles per hour left to right, temperature 72 degrees. You want this shot? I'll take it, Emory answered, already settling behind her rifle. She'd been in this position before, thousands of practice shots, hundreds of training situations, but this felt different because she knew teachers were watching, judging, deciding whether she could perform when it mattered. This was the moment that would determine whether she passed or failed the program. She controlled her breathing, let her heartbeat slow down, read the wind by watching grass move and heat shimmer, calculated all the factors that affected the bullet's path at this distance. Then she took the blank round fired with a quiet crack. 1,200 meters away, the teacher wearing the target vest immediately raised his hand and dropped down, signaling he'd been hit. Confirmed elimination came the radio message from the observation group. Target down. Perfect shot. Center match. Excellent work, team. Rivera grinned and fist-bumped Emory. Told you you'd nail it. That was flawless. But Emory's satisfaction didn't last long. As they started leaving the area, the hunter team, teachers acting as enemy soldiers searching for them, closed in on their position faster than expected. Someone had revealed their location, either through poor technique or bad luck. They had to move quickly, abandoning their carefully planned route, creating an escape through land they hadn't fully scouted. For 6 hours they played hide and seek with the hunter team, using every escape method they'd been taught, making choices instantly, adjusting to changing situations. At one point they nearly got captured. The hunter team passed within 10 meters of where they'd hidden in thick bushes. Emory controlled her breathing, her heartbeat, became completely motionless in a way that seemed almost impossible. The teachers walked right past them. When they finally reached the meeting point, 12 hours late, exhausted but successful, the lead teacher, Master Sergeant Vincent Kellerman, stood waiting with an expression that might have been approval. That, he said, was perfect escape work under pressure. You kept your discipline, didn't panic, made smart choices. That's what we're looking for in people who graduate this program. He looked directly at Emory. Outstanding performance, Collins. You've shown you can handle the stress. The official review was glowing. Emory and Rivera received the highest marks in the class for that mission. But more importantly, she'd proven something to herself, that she could perform under real pressure, that her abilities worked from the range to field situation. The program ended with a final test: long-distance precision shooting at ranges from 1,500 to 2,200 meters under different weather conditions, with moving and still target. This was where many students failed, unable to make the jump from medium distances to true long-range shooting, where every factor was multiplied. Emory approached it methodically, using everything she'd learned, trusting her training and her gut. She hit clean on every target, including a 2,200-meter shot in 15-mile-per-hour winds that several other students missed completely. When the program ended, she graduated at the top of her class, the first woman to ever finish the Special Operations Sniper training and the highest-scoring student that year. Master Sergeant Kellerman handed her the certificate personally. You earned this, he said simply. Not because we gave you special treatment, not because we lowered standards. You earned it by being better than everyone else. Be proud of that. But even with graduation and top honors, Emory knew the real challenge was still ahead. Training was one thing, combat was another, and until she proved herself in an actual war environment, there would always be critics who claimed she couldn't handle it in the real world. That chance came sooner than expected. She was assigned to a special operations group deploying to dangerous territory, where enemy forces had been launching coordinated attacks against American and Allied bases. The group needed snipers to provide protection, gather intelligence, and eliminate important targets when opportunities came. Major Eric Dawson, the group leader, was traditional military, not openly hostile to female soldiers, but doubtful about their effectiveness in direct fighting positions. When Emory reported for duty, his first words were, "You're the sniper school graduate. I was expecting someone different meaning male, sir," Emory replied politely. "Different meaning with more field experience. Your file says this is your first combat deployment. It worries me when lives depend on your performance. Then give me a chance to prove my performance, sir. I didn't graduate top of my class by luck." Dawson assigned her to a group led by Captain Nathan Cross, a decorated sniper with multiple combat tours and a reputation for being both brilliant and demanding. Cross had lost teammates to poor choices and bad shooting, and he had zero patience for anything less than excellence. "Collins," he said during their first meeting, his gray eyes studying her with an intensity that felt like being scanned, "I've read your training file. Impressive numbers, but training and combat are different beasts. Out here you don't get second chances. You miss a shot that matters. Someone dies. Maybe you, maybe one of us, maybe an innocent person. Can you live with that pressure?" "Yes, sir, I can handle it. We'll see. Your performance will speak louder than your words." He turned to the rest of the group. "This is Staff Sergeant Collins, our new precision shooter. She'll be working with Sergeant Chen as spotter. Treat her like any other member. No special consideration, no holding back. She wants to be here. She can prove she belongs." Sergeant First Class David Chen, a quiet, careful operator with 8 years of combat experience, nodded at Emory. "Welcome to the group. I've worked with 3 other snipers. 2 were excellent. 1 got himself killed by being too confident. Let's see which type you are." Her first assignment was a simple protection operation. Provide security for a convoy moving through hostile territory, stop any threats that appeared. She set up in a position overlooking the route, scanning for danger, ready to shoot if needed. The convoy passed without incident. No shots fired, no threats engaged. Some might have been disappointed by the lack of action. Emory was professional enough to know that missions where nothing happened were still successful missions. Her second operation was more eventful. Intelligence suggested that enemy forces were planning an ambush along a specific route. Cross's group was inserted the night before to watch and, if possible, stop the ambush before it could happen. They set up in hidden positions with overlapping sightlines and waited. Patience was a sniper's most critical skill, the ability to stay motionless for hours, keeping focus, ready to act instantly when the moment arrived. The enemy fighters showed up at dawn, moving into positions along the route, preparing their ambush. Through her scope, Emory counted 8 fighters, all armed with automatic weapons and rocket launchers. They were confident, relaxed, expecting easy victims. "Stand by," Cross's voice came through her earpiece. "We'll let them get settled, then take them all at once. On my signal, shoot your assigned targets. Collins, you've got the 2 on the left side." Emory placed her crosshairs on the first target, a fighter crouched behind rocks 600 meters away. She accounted for wind, height, temperature. Her finger pressed the trigger. 3, 2, 1, execute. She fired twice in quick succession, the suppressed rifle making a sound like a hand clap. Both targets dropped. Around her she heard the muffled cracks of other team members shooting their targets. In less than 10 seconds, all 8 enemy fighters were down. "All targets eliminated," Cross reported. "Outstanding shooting, team. Collins, both your targets were clean eliminations. Well done." It was the first time she'd killed another human being. She waited for the emotional reaction, guilt, horror, trauma that combat was supposed to cause. It didn't come. These fighters had been preparing to ambush and kill Americans. Stopping them was the job, and she'd done it efficiently and professionally. Over the next months, Emory participated in dozens of operations, protection missions, direct action raids, reconnaissance patrol. She proved herself repeatedly, making difficult shots under combat stress, working professionally in chaotic settings, earning the respect of her teammates through consistent performance. Chen, her spotter, became one of her biggest supporters. "She's the real deal," he told Cross after a particularly tough mission, where Emory had eliminated 3 targets at different ranges under difficult conditions. "Best shooter I've worked with, and I've worked with some legends. But the shot that would make her famous, the shot that would silence all remaining critics,
came during what should have been a routine reconnaissance mission. Intelligence had identified a high-value target, an enemy leader responsible for coordinating attacks across the entire region. He was scheduled to meet with lower-level leaders at a building in a remote valley. Cross's group was tasked with watching the meeting, confirming the target's identity and, if possible, eliminating him. They moved to an observation position on a ridge, overlooking the valley. The building was 3,000 meters away, nearly 2 miles. At that distance, positive identification would be difficult. Actually shooting a target would be nearly impossible. We're here to watch and confirm, Cross briefed the group. If we get a clean shot at reasonable distance, we'll take it, but our main job is gathering information. Don't take shots you can't make. They set up their hiding spot and began the patient work of observation. Hours passed. Through high-powered scopes they watched vehicles arrive at the building, watched fighters take security positions, watched the meeting participants arrive. Then through her spotting scope, Emory saw him, the target identified by photos from intelligence briefing. He stepped out from a vehicle surrounded by security, moved toward the building entrance, stopped to speak with someone. "I've got positive identification," she reported. "Target confirmed at the building entrance."
"Distance?" Cross asked. 3,000 meters, she replied, checking her laser tool multiple times to confirm. "That's too far," Cross said immediately. "Way too far under these conditions. Wind is unstable. Heat shimmer is severe. We'd be shooting across a temperature difference. Not a realistic shot." Major Dawson's voice came over the radio. He was monitoring from the operations center. "Agreed. We'll track him. Develop a better opportunity later. Hold position and continue watching." But Emory was studying the situation through her scope. The target was moving toward the building entrance. In 30 seconds, he'd be inside and they'd lose him. Intelligence said he rarely left this building once inside, could stay there for weeks. This might be the only chance they'd have. She ran calculations in her head. 3,000 meters, wind averaging 28 miles per hour. But gusting and changing, temperature 75 degrees at their position, estimated 95 degrees in the valley. Significant heat difference that would affect the bullet's path. Target moving at changing speeds. Heat shimmer making distance measurement difficult. Every experienced sniper would say this shot couldn't be made. The longest confirmed elimination in military history was 2,815 meters. This would be nearly 200 meters beyond that under conditions that were far from ideal. But Emory had something other snipers didn't. She'd been shooting at extreme distances since she was a teenager, had spent thousands of hours learning to read wind and heat shimmer, had a natural understanding of ballistics that went beyond textbook math, and she'd spent the last months proving herself in combat. This was her moment. "I can make this shot," she said quietly. "Negative, Collins," Cross replied firmly. "That's beyond any reasonable shooting distance. We don't take shots we can't make." "I can make it," she repeated more firmly. "I've got the data. I've got the math. And I've got a 10-second window before he goes inside and we lose him for weeks." Requesting permission to shoot. There was a pause. Cross was torn between doctrine and opportunity, between following standard procedures and trusting a shooter who'd proven herself repeatedly. Chen, her spotter, had been running his own calculations. "Sir," he said quietly, "the data actually supports the shot. It's extreme distance, but wind is steady for the moment. Temperature difference is calculable. And Collins has demonstrated precision at extended ranges. It's not impossible, just extremely difficult." "Collins, this is Dawson." The major's voice came over the radio. "That's an impossible shot under these conditions. Stand down. We'll develop another opportunity." Emory didn't respond. She was already settling into her final shooting position, making tiny adjustments to her scope based on everything she could see. Grass movement in the valley showing wind changes. Heat shimmer patterns telling her about temperature differences. The target's walking rhythm suggesting where he'd be in 8 seconds when the bullet arrived. She'd calculated that the bullet would take roughly 8.4 seconds to travel. In that time, it would be affected by wind, gravity, Earth's rotation, air density changes, and a dozen other factors. Any miscalculation of even a few inches would result in a complete miss at this distance. But Emory wasn't guessing. She was applying years of experience, thousands of hours of practice, and a level of natural understanding that couldn't be taught in any program. She controlled her breathing, let her heart rate drop to 55 beats per minute, found her natural pause between breath. The target was 20 feet from the building entrance, walking at a steady pace. In 8 seconds he'd be at the doorway. In 10 seconds he'd be inside. Her finger began its slow, steady press on the trigger. "Collins," I said, "stand down." Dawson's voice in her ear. She tuned it out. There was only the target, the crosshairs, the wind, the math. Everything else faded away. The rifle fired with a muffled crack. The powerful round left the barrel at nearly 3,000 feet per second, beginning its 8-second journey across 3,000 meters of. Through her scope, Emory watched the bullet's path, barely visible vapor trail arcing across the valley. She'd accounted for a 3.28-inch drop at this distance, for wind push that would move the bullet 64 inches left, for Earth's rotation that would shift it another 3 inches. The math had to be perfect. At 3,000 meters, being off by just 1 degree would result in a miss by over 50 meters. The target was at the doorway, his hand reaching for the handle. Security forces around him relaxed, thinking they were safe because no sniper could possibly reach them from the distant ridges. 8 seconds after Emory's shot, traveling at over 1,800 feet per second, the bullet arrived. The target dropped like his strings had been cut, collapsing in the doorway. His security forces immediately scattered, searching for the threat, trying to understand where the shot had come from. But from 3,000 meters away, the suppressed rifle sound was unhearable, the muzzle flash invisible. Holy hell, Cross breathed, his eyes still pressed to his spotting scope. Target down. She actually hit him at 3,000 meters. That's impossible. Confirmed elimination, came the report from the drone overhead, which had been filming the building. Target is down. Fatal hit. No signs of life. Chen, who'd been running verification math, spoke with quiet amazement. Distance confirmed at 3,000 meters. Wind at shooting was 26 to 30 miles per hour, changing. Temperature difference roughly 20 degrees. That shot, he shook his head. That shot should not have been possible. The radio erupted with chatter. Operations Center trying to confirm what had just happened. Other team members expressing disbelief. Dawson demanding verification of the distance and condition. Emory calmly removed the spent shell, loaded a fresh round in case a follow-up shot was needed, then spoke into her radio. Target eliminated. Distance 3,000 meters. Requesting confirmation from overhead assets and permission to leave. There was a long silence. Then Dawson's voice, carrying a note of something that might have been amazement. Shot confirmed by overhead assets. 3,000 meters, actual measured distance. Wind conditions as reported. That's a world record, call it. You just made the longest confirmed sniper elimination in military history under combat conditions against a moving target. Back at base 6 hours later, Emory was surrounded by personnel wanting to know how she'd made the shot, what math she'd used, what methods had allowed her to accomplish something that experienced snipers considered impossible. She tried to explain the ballistic calculations, the weather information, the mathematical models, but the truth was that at a certain level, precision shooting became more art than science. It was gut feeling developed over thousands of hours, an ability to read conditions that couldn't be fully measured, a confidence in your own abilities that let you take shots others wouldn't attempt. Cross pulled her aside privately. That shot you made today, he said quiet. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've worked with the best shooters in the military. What you did out there, he paused, choosing his words carefully. I was wrong to doubt you. That wasn't just skill. That was instinct at a level I've never seen. You trusted yourself when everyone, including me, was telling you it couldn't be done. That takes courage as much as ability. Thank you, sir. That means a lot coming from you. You realize what you've done, right? Master Sergeant Kellerman, her former teacher, told her over a congratulatory secure call. You've not only set a record, you've proven something that many people didn't believe was possible. Female snipers can perform at the absolute highest level of this job. You've opened doors that were closed before. The military officially recognized the shot at 3,000 meters. It was the longest confirmed elimination in combat history, beating the previous record by over 2. The details were classified. The mission information was secret. But within the special operations community, everyone knew what Emory Collins had accomplished. Hammond, her former opponent from sniper school, sent her a brief message. I was wrong about you. That shot was legendary. Chen, her spotter, put it more simply during their next mission briefing. I've spotted for many shooters. You're the best I've ever worked with. Period. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from her father, the man who'd taught her to shoot as a child, watching through his scope as she made impossible shots at Montana shooting competitions. I always knew you'd do something special, he told her during a phone call. But this setting a world record under combat conditions, I couldn't be more proud. You've proven what I've always known,
that skill and determination matter more than what anyone thinks about who should or shouldn't be able to make that shot. Emory continued to serve with Cross's group, participating in dozens more operations. She never made another 3,000-meter shot. The circumstances that had aligned for that perfect combination of distance, conditions and opportunity were unlikely to ever repeat. But she didn't need to. She'd proven what she'd set out to prove. The missions continued, each one adding to her field experience. She worked with Chen on counter-sniper operations, eliminating enemy shooters who'd been terrorizing Allied forces. She provided protection for high-risk raids, her rifle keeping teammates safe as they worked in dangerous settings. She trained local forces in shooting skills, passing on methods and knowledge that would help them defend themselves.